Living between Wednesdays, just trying to get by to the next fix. Living between Wednesdays, prefer the comics over the Netflix. Living between.
So, one thing I do like to ask, because we've pretty well gone through my gauntlet of questions, but it would pain me not to bring this up, is your amazing background. You clearly have quite the collection. I like to brag about my comic collection to my friends, but I'm pretty sure you have one figure for at least every comic I own. How did that assemble?
Years and years of collecting. As a kid, as most kids, you'd beg your parents for a particular toy for Christmas or your birthday, and superheroes were my thing, and action figures were which for me served and also two purposes. They were this great plaything that my friends and I can smash up together and whatnot. But then in my quieter times, I would prop up my action figure and start sketching them. And so it served dual purpose as a kid, never realizing, that this is probably what other artists do. This is, for me, it was just a natural thing to do. It's to study these proportions. Now, looking back at some of these figures, I go, whoa, those proportions are way off. But at the time, that was the closest thing that I had to a model that I could pose and position in some interesting fashion that I could illustrate. And so over the years, what started up as just kids wanting to have toys became a hobby and probably now an obsession. I've tried to slow down, and then my wife, she fell in love with this hobby as well. I call her an enabler, because every time I try to stop and say no, she will come home with something new and saying, I didn't see this on your shelf. This looks new. What do you think? And I go, well, it's already home. It's already paid for, so it might as well go on the shelf. And so what started off as one shelf when we first got married has evolved now into all of this.
Wow.
Yeah. And my boys over the years, they would come in and they would admire the toys, and they would pick their favorite ones, and then they would throw me a look. And I interpret that look as, yes, you can take that down and you can play with it. And we'd sit down, and as kids, I'd sit down with my kids and we'd play, and we'd have our fight sequences, and we'd do Marvel versus DC, or we'd create our own Avengers team or whatever, and we'd have fun, and then at the end of it, they'd go back on the shelf. Yeah,
That's incredible. Like, I think one of the things that, as adults, as collectors, as catalogers of nostalgia, we often think, toys like that belong in their box on their shelf to be preserved, right? In a way that we're trying to preserve our own memories and the good times. But the fact that you one, just have them openly on display, which looks fantastic, but would play with them, because that's what they are at heart, right? They're children's toys. And the fact that you're getting to connect with your kids through them on that level is, there could be no better purpose for them, right?
Exactly. I've had friends and collectors, ask me, why don't you put like glass doors or something and I go, no, that barrier, that invisible barrier just says don't touch. And I'm okay with, by all means, grab a toy, look at it, play with it, enjoy it. And it's great seeing, adults just come in, my father-in-law will come in and just take a toy off the shelf, and the look on his face, he's that child again. He's that child who just absolutely loved Batman as a kid, and he's holding that Batman there, and I see that face of a child, and how can you say no? And so that's what this is for me. It's reliving my childhood. It reminds me, to stay young at heart anyways. As we get older, the body begins to ache here and there, but if we're young in heart, young in mind, and it makes it a lot easier to get up and do things if we still have that playful attitude about ourselves and what we do.
Yeah, and please never lose that. That is such a precious thing that, when lost, I don't know if we're able to get it back, but please hold on to that. Um, so, as
Oh,
mentioned,
definitely will.
oh yeah, you've kind of run my gambit. So I always like to enter my or exit my interviews with the same two
Yes.
questions. So one, what is it that you're currently reading?
I have fallen in love with the Low uh,
Ah,
series by Rick Remender. I don't think there's anything that he has written that I don't absolutely love. I don't. I mean, I know his run on Punisher, was off and on. Some people loved it, some people didn't. I know his Frankencastle was widely panned and laughed at. I absolutely loved it. For me, it was just absolute ridiculousness, but it was a ridiculousness that worked. It wasn't really Punisher, but it was fun reading, and I think that's at the end of the day, that's what comics should be. It should be fun, and I got a laugh out of it, whether it was intentional or not. I got a laugh out of it. But this Low series, I've returned to sci-fi. I
oh,
grew up
okay.
reading sci-fi and fantasy, and then superheroes really have taken over, especially with my sons. They fell in love with superheroes, and so all three of us will sit down and we'll read our favorite Batmans together. But I've seen a strong set of sci-fi books come out. I mean, I read Black Science by Rick Remender a while back.
Oh,
Absolutely
okay.
loved it. And so Low was, for me, a natural progression. I just came to it a little bit later than most people. So I'm about halfway through the series. But I have picked up The Good Asian, and it's on my list. And I'm thinking of sneaking it in before I get to the end of Low, because it looks so good. It looks so good, and I cannot deny myself reading something that looks so good.
Agreed. And truth be told, I every person I talk to,
Mm,
or maybe every other, it
mm,
seems they
mm.
bring up Low, and I'm like, okay, Conrad, you need to go read
Okay.
this. And I have the first two issues of The Good Asian,
Mm,
because Sketchbook Comics, my local shop, they're in Niagara. They're not local, but it's where I go.
sure.
Um, the guy who owns it, he recommended it to me,
Mhm.
and when he says it's good, I'm like, all right. And the art looks good. The artist who's on it, I believe it's, and I hope I don't say this wrong. It's Pikachu. They did the comic Infidel, which I love. Very good horror
Oh
comic.
yeah. All right.
Yeah, so pick up Infidel if you have a chance. But yeah, that's another one that I've heard. The Good Asian's very good, so I'm excited to read it when I finally get enough through
Oh,
the pile to
good.
hit it. Yeah, it's fantastic. And yeah, so my last question, as always, what do you want your fans to know?
About me, about the series. Expect interesting, new biographies coming out in the Gathering Place, but also know that I'm planning two other books. One
Oh,
book is a ghost story that I actually started writing quite a while before I actually started with the Gathering Place. It served as a re-educational return to comics for me. So after having been away for so long, and it was actually my first attempt at writing.
oh,
I'd say the book's about 72 pages long. The artwork was complete, and I was ready to sort of go to print with it. And then I sort of hesitated and had second thoughts. And it was around the time that I started looking at the Gathering Place as an idea, and I was talking to my students about it. And that sort of snowballed, and I sort of went in
mm,
that direction. And recently, going through and sorting out my all my old drawings, I found that the works. And looking back, I realized, you know what? This is actually quite good. I shouldn't have been so negative. So I'm looking at bringing that to life. Um, which will be interesting because it does have a Toronto connection.
Oh, cool.
It will involve a very particular spot in Toronto, and I'm going to make sure that it's as haunted as can be, and it's fun. It's moving. There's a sense of legacy. There's a generational element to it, and ultimately, it's a story about redemption. It's a story about mental health. So there's a lot of ground to cover, and I think one of the reasons why I sort of set it aside was I think I was a little over my head in working on the story, but now looking back with a fresh set of eyes, having put together a few books, and looking back, I realized, you know what, this could work. And then I'm also at the very, very beginning stages of a sci-fi book for myself as well.
Ooh.
Again, it's getting inspired by a lot of the good sci-fi stuff that's out there, a lot of stuff that's underrated or sneaking by the radar, and it's like, no, we need more sci-fi out there. We need more sci-fi out there, and maybe it's because I recently watched Dune that I got. It's like, get to it, man. Do that sci-fi book. So we'll see. There's definitely work coming down the pipe. Junction Comics Group is definitely something that's going to be around for a while, and we'll be putting out more books. I'm hoping to eventually expand with writers and artists if we can get to that point. But right now it's me. I've had my wife, help me out with PR. I've had my two boys help me with digital coloring of books.
Oh, cool.
So right now it's a family enterprise, but I want to grow out of the family studio and grow a pair of wings and just grow this group into a group of illustrators and writers and really grow into a publishing company, a proper publishing company. And then who knows, mentor new and up and coming artists and become a place for education out of the classroom. Yeah, I think I was also bit by the education bug, and I think it won't get out of me. I think I really want to, help the next generation of artists and talent. There's incredible talent out there, and I just want to, let them know that they can do it. There's the opportunities out there. Don't ever second guess yourself. I think I've done that too often in my life. Then now I look at this opportunity as my second chance, and I'm going with it. So
beautiful and full steam ahead, Nelson. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Clearly, you've got the skills, the background to do what you're doing, and I wish you the best in it. You mentioned the Junction Comics Group and you wanting to grow it. At the moment, if someone were to want to join, so to speak, is there an avenue for them to do that?
Right now, we're still at those beginning steps. I think if a young and up and coming artist were to come my way, that could be potentially something that I could look into working with someone, and where I would take on the hat of a writer, or even if a team were to come my way, and I would see that they have a book that they want to put together. Maybe it's something I could publish and help guide them through those steps. Whether I publish it myself or I take them under my wing as a mentor and help them and guide them through the ropes and get them out there, because it is rather daunting to sort of start up your own book and put it out there. When I first started out many years ago, my mentality was, well, if I can find a publisher, then that'll be great. If I can get out there, that'll be great. And then I realized, well, maybe it would just be great if I do it myself, and learn all the various aspects of what is involved to do it myself. It definitely gave me a greater appreciation for all the self-publishers who are out there, who have taken this on, who have been doing it for years, who have the same enthusiasm today that they did when they first started out, and they're still self-publishing. And I meet them at the conventions, I meet them at the shops, and they're just incredible individuals, very positive, very inspiring. And I'm here doing what I do because they're still doing it. They're still doing it, and lets me know that I can still do it.
Awesome, and I hope you do. So absolutely, Nelson, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and talk with us about the Gathering Place, about Junction Comics Group, and about yourself in general. It was a pleasure having you.
Oh, it's great talking to you, and thank you for having me on the show. I mean, it's great to be able to get these stories, these artists who have been lost to history, get their story out there. And so, if there's some people out there who find these stories interesting, or the idea of learning more about Canadian artists and these incredible talents, by all means, pick up the book. And thank you for being an avenue for getting out to the word out to people.
Well, it is my pleasure. And folks out there in YouTube land, please check out all the links down below where you can get The Gathering Place, as well as see all of Nelson's links, websites, and social media. And absolutely thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Excellent. Thank you.
Golden age to present, digest to oversize. Never miss new comic day, yeah, no surprise. So where's my no prize? Check the letter columns. Can't find issue 2? Yeah, collector problems, cliffhangers, mysteries, you need answers. When did Batman become Green Lantern? I get it, true believer, not lying. Always up for an awesome summer crossover.